God created through principle and law. 21. God gave Adam and Eve the commandment as a condition of faith, when they were in the position of his object partners. However, from now on, God will seek something more substantial. Therefore, we must unite our minds and bodies in order to embody God. We must become more than someone whom God can relate to as only his object partner. By adhering to the laws of creation, we must become his substantial self. 22. The Bible describes God's creation of heaven and earth in simple terms, saying that God created heaven and earth through the Word. The impression is that when he spoke the words, "Let there be," that entity appeared with a snappy "Here I am." When God said, "Let there be light," the stars appeared. When God said, "Let dry ground appear," the earth simply formed itself. However, please be aware that in this process God maintained the principle of progression, starting with the lowest and simplest things and going on to create higher and more complex things according to an all-encompassing order and law. 23. In people's lives, true love for the sake of others is the foundation for mutual relationships. We experience this first in the true love of parents. Parents' true love, rooted in God's true love, can perfect individuals. Perfected individuals, who then become husband and wife and build an ideal family, can bestow true love upon their children. That is the order of creation. The ideal world on earth expands from the perfect individual to a family, society, nation and world of true love. Our present world, however, emerged from a beginning very different from this ideal and expanded according to the results of the fall. This world is separated from the proper order of true love, the essential dynamic of God's creation. The world today, which ignores the order of God's creation and follows man-made structures, social forms and laws, cannot give rise to ideal individuals, families or nations. 24. When God created the heavens and the earth, he first made all things and then he created human beings as his object partners. The dynamic of giving and receiving is a basic law, so until you give everything, nothing will return. This is a principle. A husband has to love his wife completely before she will say, "I completely love my husband." Only when she has received his complete love will she begin to give back completely. This is a principle of heaven and earth. Thus, only when you receive completely from your subject partner do you reciprocate completely. If you were to reciprocate before you received completely, what you return would not be perfect and complete. This is give and receive action based on love. It is a law of the universe based on the principle. 25. We can see that the process of God's creation follows a principle of 3 stages. First, God has an idea, then he completes that idea in his mind, and finally he manifests that idea. He formed all things of creation through these 3 stages. Of course, God cannot substantiate his word in his mind alone. For this, he too had to unite his mind and body. That is how he could finally bring about his creation when he spoke, "Let it be. Let it be created like this." 26. God's process of creation began from the concept of creating his counterparts and the motivation to do so. He began with extremely tiny entities. When they were complete, he added a higher motivation and purpose and advanced to larger entities. He continued this process to achieve stages ever more complex, adding new design elements and higher purposes until he came to create human beings. 27. Based on the principle, God the Creator substantially developed all things from the beginning of creation, throughout history and until now, through a process of growth. He created Adam and Eve to go through the same process. Where did this begin for them? In the same way that tiny cells combine together to form bigger things, a baby is formed through 10 months in the womb to emerge as a male or female child. If this were not the case, we would have no way to explain the logic of the inheritance of life. In other words, the realm of the object partner must correspond to the realm of the subject partner. In divine principle terms, there has to be an external form that corresponds to the internal nature. 28. The internal nature has the innate capacity to unite and communicate with the external form in every fundamental respect. As a result, the birth and growth process of human beings allows the invisible, incorporeal God to see Himself in their substantial forms. Because His every intrinsic aspect is expressed and manifested through them, God cannot help but love them. That is so for each of us. We are God's embodiments, His substance. To transpose invisible substance into visible substance, God has to invest everything,